Hey guys, this is Butch. Good to be back with you again. Sorry I missed you all last week, but I was at my mommy's in Florida for a little vacation, just to hang out with her and some friends. It was just a wonderful time, but it's good to be back with you guys. Today I'm at Masterson Station Park, which is not too terribly far from my house. On my way to the office for the day. It's still cold here in Kentucky. Not quite freezing, but right at it for right now. But supposed to get up in the 50s today. But I invite you to join me today as we begin to look at the first part of the story of Peter being miraculously delivered from prison. So stick with us. So there's a few things we probably need to know to make this story even more real to us. Just prior to this passage, James, one of the sons of thunder, John's brother, was beheaded by Herod. And when Herod saw how it pleased everyone, he's like, oh, okay. So then he arrested Peter with the intent to do the same thing. Now, if you remember previously, as we've gone through the book of Acts some, Peter and some of the other disciples were arrested and then miraculously freed. But this Herod is the grandson of Herod the Great. Herod the Great is the one that killed the babies when Jesus, right after Jesus was born, probably within 2 years of that time. Then his son, Herod, was the one that had John the Baptist beheaded. And now Herod the Great's grandson, Herod, is seeking to establish himself as a leader. And one of the ways he's trying to do that is to gain the favor of the Jews by the persecution of the way. Remember, the church is not called Christians yet. It's still referred to as the way. And so I've kind of gone through this story a little bit to make a few changes, things a little bit more conversational, but just stay with me here while we go through this story the first time. Now, on that very night when Herod was about to bring Peter out, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers bound with two chains, and there were sentries before the door guarding the prison. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to Peter, and a light shone in his cell. And the angel struck Peter on the side and woke him and said, "Get up quickly." And the chains fell off of Peter's hands. And the angel said to him, "Dress yourself and put on your sandals." And so Peter did. And the angel said, "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me." And Peter went out and followed him. He didn't know that what was being done by the angel was real, but he thought he was seeing a vision. When they'd passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading into the city. It opened for them of its own accord, and they went out and along one street. And immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people expected." And I'm stopping the story there because we really want to dig deeply into this passage. I actually did this with a small group at our church yesterday morning. Had some really good discussion, and I will be posting some of that a little bit later if anybody would be interested in watching it. I want to talk about in this story, I want to take this opportunity. This is in Acts chapter 12, verses 6 through 11, by the way. I want to take this opportunity to talk about the importance of the situation question. The very often what I find, especially when I'm dealing with fellow believers from other cultures is, but even here in the West, people tend to see Christians and biblical characters in their completed spiritual state. They tend to see them as mature spiritually. And yet, God very purposefully allows us to walk along the spiritual journey of discovery with Bible characters. One of the stories we do is Moses Rock 1, and it is just really easy to see, folks, when you talk about the Israelites and they're whining and complaining against Moses because they're out in the desert with no water. Well, is that a pretty serious issue? Yet, when I see Christians talking about that passage, what they end up doing is, oh boy, Israel, man, what a bunch of jerks. And it's, I don't know, I'm at that generation that when I was growing up, Westerns were about all that was on television and a lot of what was in the movie theaters. And when you watch the early Westerns, you could always see who was the good guy and who was the bad guy. The good guys wore white hats, the bad guys wore black hats, right? And our tendency is to do some of the same kind of thing. Like in the Moses Rock 1 story, typically my situation question would be something along the lines of, what would it be like to be a mother or a grandfather and your little 4-year-old is tugging on your robe and saying, I'm thirsty, I haven't had anything to drink for days. What do you think that might be like? And so all of a sudden, our presuppositions and our preconceived notions go flying out of the window. When I see my youngest granddaughter tugging on my robe, saying, Pop, I'm thirsty, all of a sudden I have a little bit more compassion and a little bit more understanding of the Israelites in their plight. I'm not excusing their behavior. Please hear what I'm saying. But I want people to feel this is real and this is genuine. Now, this is especially true, at least for me, when I'm talking about Christians and we're talking about the disciples or followers of Christ in the New Testament. They tend to want to make them fully developed. And so just prior to the stories we talked about, James, one of the sons of thunder, has been killed. He's been beheaded. And it's interesting because here we have Peter and James both taken by Herod. That's 2 out of the 3 of what was called the inner circle, right? Those 3 disciples who were the closest to Christ. I don't know that that's a coincidence, but that is something that I would talk about in this story to bring up to people for discussion. But for this story, my situation question would be something along the lines of, wow, what do you think it might have been like for Peter to have been grieving the death of his good friend, James, and now the same guy that had just killed him that has just killed James, has Peter arrested? What do you think it might have been like for Peter? And that question makes us wrestle with some things, because even in the story, as we're going to look at the story, the fact that this angel had to wake Peter up, and there's several possibilities there. Either Peter was so calm and so collected and so sure of God's deliverance that he just, okay, I'm going to bed, or else it had been an emotionally a time of great emotional upheaval, and he was just exhausted and was sleeping out of exhaustion. Now, we're not told in the story, right? But again, I want to use my situation question to kind of plant that seed in our discussion, so that then we can dig deep into beginning to see several different possibilities in the character of Peter. And so I would just encourage you, don't just throw a situation question out there to have one there, but try to figure out, okay, what is a good situation question that I can use, one that will take my people, the participants in the story, out of whatever rut of understanding a passage they are in. And also, how is this going to possibly add to our discussion later on? So again, this story is in Acts chapter 12, verses 6 through 11. Now, one of the things I did with this story is you can kind of see here where the angel is speaking, I highlighted that. And then where Peter is speaking at the end of the story, I put it all in blue. Yeah, and even as I'm learning this story, I don't have it down yet, but I'm just picturing Peter kind of in a, in that sleep haze. You ever, I mentioned early on that my wife and I had gone to Florida to visit my mom. Well, when we came back, our flight boarded at 5:20 in the morning, which meant we had to be at the airport at 4:20 in the morning. And so, boy, that first little bit of the morning when you kind of get up almost in the middle of the night, you're, where am I? How did I get here? What am I doing? Why am I up this hour? Kind of that confusion fog. And so even as I'm learning this story, I am picturing Peter as kind of like, oh, an angel, really? Is this, wow, what a cool dream. How awesome is that? And then that brings at the end when he goes, oh, wow, now I'm sure that the Lord has sent his angel, and to make it more real. And we're going to spend some time in this story this week, and next week we'll do the second part of the story, and then the week after we're going to finish the story with one of the greatest paybacks in all of the Bible. Kind of a really gross story. And so I know some of you will cheat and look ahead. That's okay. It's okay to read your Bible. You don't have to wait and just follow along with the story. But if there's things you see about learning this story or things you see in this passage that pop up at you, I'd love to have you put it in the comments section. Also, at the end of this video, I finally learned how to add a subscribe button. Haven't learned how to move it around yet. But if you've not subscribed to the channel, it'd be a personal favor. But until the next time, keep on telling those Bible stories.